Morris Shepherd, deemed "Father of the Prohibition", was a renowned senator who developed his critical anti-alcohol stance as a young man, seeing the damage it could cause, and would eventually be crucial in the ratification of the 18th Amendment. He said, "The fact that alcohol undermines the brain and paralyzes the will of man, planting in him and his posterity the seeds of physical and moral degeneracy, the seeds of disease, the seeds of poverty, the seeds of crime, makes it a peril to the very existence of free government. Let the people of this nation insert in the national constitution, the source of the nation's life, a clause prohibiting an evil that will prove to be the source of the nation's death."
I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was.
It is clear that organized crime swelled during the period of Prohibition in the 1920s. Before the Prohibition, gangs that could be classified as organized were rare. One notorious gang, the Italian Mafia, has roots in early America, when Italian immigrants from Sicily would join to enforce their own law due to distrust of local law. Organized crime would not become popular until the illegal selling of alcohol became a business too profitable to pass up. With the ratification of the 18th Amendment put into effect on January 16, 1920. Soon after, speakeasies, or underground drinking clubs, surfaced everywhere. Chicago, by far, was the city with the largest reputation for gang violence, especially since it was home to the infamous gang leader Al Capone. To show that he was untouchable, he allowed himself to be interviewed, and in this interview said, "We figured this law wasn't making the biggest hit in the world with a lot of people. They didn't vote for it and didn't want it, and was America a free country or what? It looked like a good opening for a lot of smart younger fellows." Al Capone's gang in Chicago would make an estimated $100 million a year. Al Capone was born Alphonse Capone and raised in New York. His older brother ran away at 16 and changed his name. He later became a reputable enforcer of the 18th Amendment and became known as Richard Two Gun Hart. He would bust up to 7 bootlegging operations a day. Al Capone, on the other hand, got involved in gang activity at a young age. He worked his way up the ranks and as a part of a gang operation was later moved to Chicago, where he was an apprentice to Johnny Torrio, who led the Chicago Outfit. The Chicago Outfit rivaled the North Side Gang, whose members were composed mostly of Irish Americans. An assassination attempt against Johnny Torrio, where 3 bosses of the North Side Gang attack Torrio when he's in his car, but run out of bullets before they can finish him off, causes Johnny Torrio to retire and relieve control of the Chicago Outfit to Al Capone. Al Capone had control of the Chicago Outfit for most of the Prohibition era. The amount of money made by gangs peaked in the Prohibition era, with anyone having the ability to bootleg alcohol in their backyard. This, plus the easily corrupted enforcement of the Prohibition law, caused organized crime to become a daily part of life. On February 14, 1929, it became painfully apparent that gang violence had gotten out of control with the Valentine's Day murder. Men from Bugs Moran's North Side Gang waited at a warehouse while men dressed as police officers and civilians pulled up, and the men waiting, thinking it was the police arresting them, faced the wall. Then the men in disguise opened fire on them while their backs were turned. Only one member survived long enough for the police to arrive, but upheld the gang's code of silence and died. Even though it was not proven that Al Capone's gang committed the murder, all attention was directed at Al Capone. All this attention jump-started a vigorous campaign to convict Al Capone on his crimes, and they are rewarded when they can finally arrest him for tax evasion. Al Capone, being found guilty, became big news, and he was sentenced to 11 years in jail. After serving his sentence, he was no longer able to lead the Chicago Outfit because he was a mental wreck. He went crazy because he thought that his cell was haunted. Soon after the Valentine's Day murder, Prohibition was stopped, and along with it was most of the business that organized crime thrived on. In conclusion, no other period in American history came close to the amount of crime than during Prohibition. Many people who wanted Prohibition believed that without alcohol, the world would be a better place. They all thought that there would be no crime and that everyone would become productive and patriotic. Even if they were right, no one would have known because during Prohibition, people drank more than ever. Crime shot up, and federal spending on enforcement of the new law cost a small fortune. Prohibition didn't stop people from drinking. It just caused competitive gangs to supply alcohol, and this caused violence to run rampant across the streets. To the 1920s, organized crime stole the spotlight, and for 10 years was the biggest news out there. It became forever etched in history after only a decade.